Hey everybody, welcome to Real Supernatural Encounters. Today I have a couple of Bigfoot encounters by an eyewitness account. So without further ado, let's get started. This email is from Jonah Amat, and this is her encounter. In 1979, I lived in a rural area in Monroe County, Ohio. I was 8 years old at the time. My parents was renting a home. It had a creek that ran on one side of the property, and on the other side was a cornfield. A little ways behind the house was a wooded area that led into the thicker woods, and the corner of the property and wooded area with a pig pen. The landlord kept a male and female pigs in the pen. That spring they had a bunch of piglets. In April, I had woke up around midnight or 1 a.m. to all the pigs screaming. I laid in my bed and absolutely in fear, especially after I heard another scream. That wasn't a pig, and it was loud. This is going to sound strange, but it sounded like the Shira sounds. Sorry if I didn't spell that right. Not the whistles, but when I started to scream, then that grumbling sound. I can't listen to the audio till this day. It still gives me chills. Then I heard one piglet screaming, squealing. Then I heard silence. I think this is what scarred me the most of all, was the silence. When a few seconds later I heard wood breaking. My bedroom was on the second floor of the house, and I couldn't look out the window to see what was going on. My bedroom window faced the creek, and all the racket was going on behind the house. That morning I woke up and had went outside to check on the pigs. When I walked over to the pen was empty. I had looked around and noticed a large gaping hole in the heavy wired fence that had led into the woods. From time to time we would feed the scraps to the pigs, and they'd always come running. So I had called out to them. The pigs started to run through the hole in the fence back into their pen. I noticed one piglet missing, so I had went looking for it. Wasn't but a few steps into the small galley that the piglet was laying there dead. It was on its side with a big chunk of its stomach missing. By this time, I had gotten my dad and he had buried the piglet. During this time, I had walked into a small wooded area next to the cornfield. It had a lot of small trees around 2 inches to 3 inches in diameter, all around this area, my favorite place. I stepped over the large log that was laying on the ground. I was shocked as it looked like something walked through the small trees. It was as if something had put its arms out and made a pathway that split in half, broken small trees, 2 to 3 diameters, like this. So the trees going into the woods, it looked like that. Person, like a cross, as you went into there. For the next couple of months that went by, nothing had happened, at least nothing that didn't stand out. On the 4th of July, my mom had bought me and my brother, he was 12 years old, some firecrackers to set off. We set ours off at night. I got done setting mine off, and my brother walked a little farther away from the house to set his off. He had lit a few. My mother, standing beside me, had put her hand on my shoulder. I had looked up at her. I noticed she was looking away from my brother and looking at the shed. Behind the shed was a security light. It was setting off a shadow. It was large and human shape. It was sitting and rocking back and forth. My mother said, "Wayne, let's stop. We can set your fireworks off tomorrow." My brother argued with her for a few. While my mom kept calm, she finally convinced my brother to stop and get in the house. After Mom had pushed us into the house and locked the house filled up with sulfur and urine smell. I went to find my dog Lisa, and she was a rough collie. She was curled up tightly in the corner of the house, whining. Note, the sound of fireworks did scare her, normally doesn't bother her. Sometime in August, my dog Lisa had passed away from old age. It was about a week later. I was sitting on the porch at dusk. I was focused looking at the creek and listening to the water. A ghostly white figure appeared, and it was my dog. She would take a few steps, look at me, then disappear, then reappear, take a few more steps, then disappear before looking at me again. Middle of September, 3 of my cousins were visiting us. Our parents would be playing cards while us kids would be outside playing. My three cousins, my brother, and I decided to play hide and seek. It was very late at night, but we didn't care. It was something we did all the time. As we were playing for a while, I was hiding. I hid behind the fallen large log on the ground in front of the little wooded area. Then it was time to run to base. As I was running to the porch, I happened to glance in the cornfield. There I seen this figure covered with hair. The corn was fully grown, but still green at this time. The top of the cornstalks came to its mid-chest area. With all honesty, I didn't think Bigfoot was in Ohio. I always thought that they were in just California. It had a big chest and shoulders. It appeared to be watching me running to the porch. As it was watching me, it had its head tilted back. It appeared to be laughing with its mouth open, showing large blocked teeth. I turned my head and faced to the porch and run. When I got there, I figured it was just my imagination. We all rested for a few. Then one of my cousins mentioned, "Let's go into the cornfield." We all agreed. Our oldest cousin, Timmy, said he was done playing and he was going to go sit on the porch. So I teamed up with my cousin Tammy and my brother teamed up with Kenny. We started at different places into the cornfield. It was about 10 minutes into finding each other when my brother and Kenny had split up. Me and Tammy was still with each other then. I heard my brother say, "Timmy, is that you?" I then hear a bunch of the corn rustling and turn my head to the sound. There, facing away from me, was the same figure I saw earlier. But it was standing and looking down away from me about 35 yards. My brother stated to me him and Kenny separated and he had walked upon something that was kneeling down and facing away from him. As he walked upon it, he had tapped it on its shoulders and said, "Timmy, is that you?" It had quickly stood up, looking down on him. He said it did a small, low growl and moved its eyes side to side. Then he turned around and started to run away from him. When I was looking at it, it dawned on me that I was looking at the Bigfoot had turned from my direction and started running. It was one row of corn away from me as it ran past. The Bigfoot was gray. His head was big, flat nose, and lip area like an ape. Long hair on its head and then gotten shorter on the rest of the body and very muscular. I had watched it ran into the other end of the cornfield. That night was very bright, if I remember right. We had the hunter's moon out, so it was very helpful for me to see this Bigfoot. And so this is the first story, and I have the second one. I'm going to continue here in just a second. But I find it pretty cool and scary if you're playing hide and seek as a kid in the cornfield. And when you're running out, you see this Bigfoot and his mouth's wide open and he's laughing and you see his big blocked teeth. I mean, you would think it'd be scary unless he looked a little human, if not all the way human. And then for them to continue playing hide and seek, and they go hide in different parts of the cornfield, and her brother goes and taps on what he thought was his cousin Timmy, but it was a gigantic Bigfoot. He tapped it on the back and it scared him. He scared the shit out of the Bigfoot, which is kind of funny. And usually, they get scared, they'll be aggressive, but he realized they were just kids playing, and he kind of just was curious and wanted to see what was going on. So as he did a little growl, he was just like, "You got me." That's kind of what I took it as. And then he looked side to side to see if there was anybody else noticing him, and the Bigfoot just got up and ran. So I thought that was pretty funny. So let me click out of here and go to the second but last in. Oh, shoot. All right. Last email. All right, here's the second part. Between the years of 1979 and 2000, the only things that has happened in I Shine alongside the road is numerous areas. And one time, I was living in a friend's house with my daughter. She was 3 years old at the time, and while walking to my car. I heard very loud footsteps, flat-footed sound, running from the side of the house to the woods behind her house. It was night and it was very dark. I had turned around to look, but I didn't see anything. Plus, I was too busy pushing my daughter into the car. In spring of 2000, my friend Robin and I started hiking, and we would go to the Mohican State Park, Ashland County of Ohio. Mohican State Park has many hiking and biking trails. Most of the trails run along both sides of the Mohican River. The two main trails start from State Route 3 to Pleasant Hill Dam. One side of the river is one trail that is very flat, while the other trail is Lions Fall Trail, and it is a very terrain type. And through the spring and fall, we would go there on Lions Fall Trail on my days off. We found throughout the time multiple footprints and a handprint of a Bigfoot. We had heard wood knocking and a grunt here and there. We would be in the woods very early in the morning, before anyone else would start arriving in the park. Just at the mid-fall, we was doing all normal hike. We turned around the bend in the path. It looked like a tornado had went through it, but thing was, there was no storms in that area for weeks. One of the trees was bowed, and two of the other trees were very tall, and the trunk huge. The strange part was the tops of those trees were broken off about a good 20 feet off the ground. As we looked on the ground, there were also smaller trees that were broken in half, about 2 inches in diameter, like that place I used to live at, and scattered. Me and Robin just kind of looked at each other in shock, and the first thing I said on the top of my head, it had to be over its territory. We finished our hike without any other issues that day. November. It was a very nice day. Wasn't cold, but it was brisk temperature, good weather, and temperature to go hiking. On our normal trail, Lions Fall, that we had to take a little break for a bit. It was about 15 minutes later. We heard a group of school kids hiking on the other side of the river. They were singing, "Row, row, row your boat," and laughing very loudly. After they had passed us from the other side of the river, we had got up and started out to the opposite direction. We walked about 100 yards. I had stopped because I had a familiar feeling that had came over me. I happened to glance over to the woods and a fresh trail of tall grass that was patted down as something large had walked through. It was a flat area with tall grass for about 60 feet, then a cliff that goes straight up about 40 feet high. I then pointed this out to Robin as soon as she noticed it. A rock had wheezed past our heads. It was 3 inches long. Both of us started scanning on top of the cliff of the direction of where the rock came from. Then a second rock was thrown at us, but not hitting us. We kept looking in that direction. Then I had looked right side on top of the cliff. The sun was peering through the trees, which made the silhouette of him stand out more clearly. He was very tall, very muscular, and his arms went past his knees. I could even see that he was covered with reddish brown hair. I couldn't see any facial features because of the sun and the distance. And he was swaying side to side. When I noticed this, I thought to myself, he's nervous. To this day, I don't know or why I did this, but I put my arms out and I put my arms out from my side and with my palms out to show him I didn't have anything in my hands. I said softly and mentally, "We're not here to harm you." At that moment, the male Bigfoot stopped swaying and became relaxed. I then grabbed Robin by the shoulders and guided her to move on. We hiked the rest of the trail in silence till we got back into the SUV. After that day, we still hiked there. It just seemed like every time when it was just Robin and I, we would have small pebbles, usually three, still don't know why, thrown towards us but 5 feet away from us. Felt as if they were saying hello or greeting us. Then we would just wave, yell out, "Good morning," and go on our hike. This was before I knew I was an empath. I relied on my gut instincts for years. I know my sightings sound a little corny to someone who is not an empath. May 2001, my daughter and I lived with my parents to save money to buy my own place. This was in Monroe County, Ohio, again, but a different home. There was a lot of farming fields, hills, and woods off of a dirt road. I noticed some strange stuff going on. We had two dogs at this time. One was a Rottweiler Shepherd mix named Shadow, and a Blue Heeler named Buddy. Shadow was the older and the wiser, while Buddy was a pup, whom looked up to Shadow and wanted to mirror everything Shadow did. One night I had let both of them out. I waited a few minutes, then I walked outside to call for them. When I call, they usually come running. They never go too far, they just stay on the property. But lately, they have been going across the road to the corner edge of the wood line, more frequent at night. One night, I had called for them. I didn't hear them coming, so I had walked to the edge of the porch to see across the road. Then I called them again. That's when I noticed large, almond-shaped yellow eyes shine from across the road. They had turned to look at me. First, they were about 4 feet off the ground. Then I guess it had stood up to 7 feet. Then I guess it had turned its head and walked away the opposite direction of me. That's when Shadow and Buddy came out of the place where the eye shine was. That's when I felt my heart drop. And I wanted to panic because I have read how Bigfoot would kill dogs. But here they come, up the driveway, just wagging their tails like everything was cool. One night in May, my brother and I was leaving to go somewhere. He had jumped into his car and left, and I had gotten into my Blazer. I didn't leave right away, was fiddling around with something. Then I put my truck into reverse at the same time I turned on my lights as I was turning around in the driveway. I had looked up towards the row of evergreen trees. They're walking into the evergreens. I only seen the backside. I knew it was a Bigfoot. It was tall, about 7 feet, brown hair, very bulky, shoulders and hips, just like Patty, which is the film, Patty film, without the cone shaped on its head. When it got through the evergreens, it had turned around and looked at me. It was the same eye shine that I have seen with the dogs. Then I noticed another set of eye shine, much smaller through the trees. They were just a few inches off the ground. That's when it came to me. That's a mother and a child. It only happened a few seconds. That's when I decided to leave and let the mother and child to do their thing. My last sighting of her was when I was leaving for work. On the side of the house is an old lilac bush. On the other side is a dugout used to be an entrance to the basement, just about 5 feet away. My dad had rigged up a pipe out of the window for the condensation to escape. This one morning at 4:30 a.m., I was leaving for work. I had got into my Blazer, opened the door, and happened to look at the lilac bush while getting into the Blazer. I noticed movement behind the lilac, the yellow almond eyes. I noticed she had large brows and a flat, large nose and wide, round face. She had looked at me for a couple of seconds, then she was gone. I guess she had squatted down where I couldn't see her. I then just pulled out of the driveway and went to work. I guess she was going to that pipe for water that was draining out of the window. I didn't see her again after that, but she was still around, just a little here and a little there. Every once in a while, I would hear a bang on the outside of my house. This went on for 3 years until I had moved into my own home in the year 2004. A couple of months after I had moved out of my parents, my dog Shadow had passed away, and Buddy had come to live with me. A week after Shadow's passing, my mother had called that a night. She told me that she has been hearing loud and heavy footsteps outside the house and seems to be walking around the house. That's every time she hears the footsteps, she would go to the window to see anything. Then she would hear the sounds are at the other side of the house. She said this went on for hours. I told Mom it was okay. It's Shadow's friends. I looking for him. My mom understood what I was saying because I told her about Shadow, Buddy, and the Bigfoot earlier. This is all my Bigfoot sightings. So that was pretty cool. I really love this. She sent the first one a weekend ago, and I just got the second one, the second email this weekend. So I was excited to hear it. Now, not only has she had Bigfoot sightings and encounters, but she has also had dogman encounters. For those people who don't know what a dogman is, it's like pretty much a werewolf, but not the Hollywood typical kind. It's just a bipedal wolfman type of thing. And she'll be sending me those encounters next weekend, and I think that'll be my next episode. But sometimes I wish I could have a Bigfoot encounter, one as nice as that she was. Even though she had or rocks thrown at her, she was showing like, "Hey, I'm not here to hurt you." And then from there on, those Bigfoot would just throw pebbles to get their attention to say hello. So, and that's in Ohio. And yeah, so that pretty much ends our stories for today. If you guys have any encounters of paranormal, supernatural, or cryptid, or anything of the sort, you can send me an email at realsne_stories@yahoo.com. That's REALSNE_STORIES@yahoo.com. So that ends our stories. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you later.